And how can we talk about spiritual evolution without talking about love? Well, we're about to find out with our next speaker, Edward Christie. Love, the driving force of the universe. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Edward has been involved with Spiritism for more than 20 years and is an active member of Inner Enlightenment, Spiritist Society in New York. Edward is also a classical trained pianist and has given lectures and talks about Spiritism and music around the country. Edward is the president of Fraternity Without Borders US, a nonprofit organization that has projects helping children and their families in Brazil, Madagascar, Mozambique, and Senegal. Edward?
Unlike Louise, I don't sign, so I hope that's not a big disappointment. Actually, I've been studying Portuguese for over 20 years, and I think at my memorial service they're going to say, he never really did get it. But the Buddhist teacher, Jack Kornfield, said, if you can sit quietly after difficult news, if in financial downturns you can remain perfectly calm, if you can see your neighbors travel to fantastic places without a twinge of jealousy, if you can happily eat whatever's put on your plate, if you can fall asleep after a day of running around without a drink or a pill, if you can always find contentment just where you are probably a dog. As far as we can tell, dogs are happy to be just what they are. Dogs don't look for meaning or ask questions or wonder, what am I doing here? When we humans look at ourselves, we're restless. We ask why, look for meaning, and wonder, what am I doing here? One reason Jack Kornfield's observation is amusing is because we share a lot of similarities with dogs. Dogs have feelings and affections and can give up their lives to save their offspring. We can call these a kind of primitive love. But human nature is capable of more than instincts and affections. Unlike dogs, we can make real, life-altering choices. No eggplant, elephant, or electron strives to be better than it is. Human beings are a work in progress. In his book, Life and Destiny, the Spiritist philosopher Leon Denis writes, all the powers of the soul can be confined to 3 words: to will, to know, and to love. Let me repeat that. All the powers of the soul can be confined to 3 words: to will, to know, and to love. The power to will is given to our conscience. Our conscience guides our actions, telling us to do what's right and avoid doing what's wrong. The power to know is given to our mind. Our mind searches for what's true and what's false, what to believe and what to doubt. The power to love is given to our heart. Our heart awakens us to our inner self, our innermost self, the self that's more than our thoughts and beliefs and choices. With these 3 powers, we have the means to become something more than we are today. We can choose right action, search for truth, and awaken to the deep reserve of love that's in each of us. Earth is our home, but we're not entirely at home on Earth. Earth is less a home and more like a hotel, a place we stay a while. Imagine yourself on a journey, stopping at a hotel and loving the hotel so much that you give up on your destination and decide not to leave. The hotel's good and provides for your needs. I happen to be partial to jacuzzis, but you didn't travel to end up in a hotel. While you're lying by the hotel pool and thinking about your destination, You're living with the contradiction between having real satisfaction while you're surrounded by things that only give temporary pleasure. Yet, having real satisfaction doesn't mean giving up temporary pleasures. We're meant to use the good things in this life with simplicity and gratitude. If we're afraid to get pleasure from the good things in life, we'll live a negative life. Instead of finding value in the world, we spend our time knocking down evil, focusing on what's wrong, watching for temptation at every turn. There's nothing wrong with this, but if all we do is avoid the bad, we'll miss the good. We're made from a loving God, and this love calls us to a positive, creative, and evolving life. Worldly things are good because they come from a good God. Our challenge is to find a way to value them without making them the ultimate pleasure in life. We can see them as St. Francis did when he looked up at the stars and said, "If these are the creatures, what must the Creator be like?" In John's epistle we read, "Whoever does not know love does not know God, because God is love." This love is a force that gives order to the entire universe, and everything is moving toward it. It's not a mechanical force like gravity that affects two bodies, but a will that draws us to it with tenderness and mercy. Divine love attracts our innermost self, our heart, and this attraction we call love. Coming to terms with the will of God takes time. We're made to love, we're drawn to love, and yet we spend most of our lives trying to satisfy our own will and get our own way. When our will conflicts with God's, things get difficult for us. Someone close to us dies. We have to live with an illness, or we lose a job, and we don't want to accept that things didn't turn out the way we planned. We grumble that life is unfair and the cards are stacked against us. The game is rigged and there's no way to win. In the end, we'll have to say, "Thy will be done." Don't call this resignation. Call this defeat. We give up because in the battle of the wills, we lost. We say we can't know God's will, and it hardly matters. In the end, we're going to lose. But it is possible to discover God's will. God is love, and God's will cannot be contrary to love. God wills us to share in his great work of love. Instead of standing by helplessly while God pulls the strings, finding our part in this great work of love gives us something positive to do. This attitude makes all the difference. Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl wrote, "What in the end remains is the last of human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in a given set of circumstances." Love is not just an emotion, it's an inner attitude, a conscious act of the will that harmonizes our will with the divine will. When we conform our will to a will that's only love, we collaborate in a work of love. We act true to our nature, freely and consciously, and face whatever comes with a trust in God's loving will. St. Francis found this inner attitude, but it took him some time. As a young man, Francis wanted to be a knight. It's true. Our president always says it's true, but this time it's really true. He wanted to be a knight. Knights are brave and loyal, and they risk death and treat their own with courtesy and loyalty. Francis wanted to carry an axe and a sword and achieve glory by defending his hometown of Assisi. When he was 20 years old, he went off to battle with the neighboring city of Perugia. He never made it there. On the way, he was taken prisoner and thrown into a polluted church basement. He spent a year in that prison and another year in bed recovering from malaria. He still wanted to be a knight. So when he was strong enough, he set off to battle in a war with Apulio. He never made it there. On the way, he spiked the fever, and lying in bed, he heard a voice telling him to go home. There he would be told what to do. He'd become a knight, but not the kind of knight he imagined. 12 years later, after turning his life around and becoming the Francis we know, he goes off to war again to fight in the Fifth Crusade. At this time, it was not to raise a sword to Muslim enemies, but as a peacemaker, bearing a gift of a message of reconciliation. He entered the enemy camp unarmed and, like a knight, bravely risked his life for a cause, the cause of peace. The Sultan, who was sworn to kill any Christian he met, welcomed Francis as a friend. Francis thought that to achieve glory, he would have to raise weapons against an enemy. Once he stopped being preoccupied with his will and his dream, he was guided to be a true knight, a person of courtesy, bravery, and ideals. He placed his trust in God's will, and God made Francis over from the inside. God's will became his will. God's love, his love. Francis still had his character. He still wanted to be a knight, but he no longer took his identity or found his identity in his dream. He found his identity in something that was true and lasting. He found his place in God's work of love. Unlike Francis, we're more like the mountain climber who had almost reached the top of the mountain when he slipped and fell. Hanging over the edge of the cliff, he said, "Help! Is there anybody up there?" A loud, deep voice answers, "This is God. Let go, I'll catch you." The climber thinks for a minute and says, "Is there anybody else up there?" One reason we don't see God's will clearly is that it's easy for us to understand law and not so easy for us to understand love. So we tend to let our actions be guided by the law rather than by love. Because with law, we know exactly what's expected of us. If we get caught breaking the law, the consequences are spelled out. If we fail to love, the consequences are not always clear. In the justice of the divine government, the wrongs we do when we fail to love don't result in external consequences. Our wrongs don't harm God's love. Instead, the harm from the wrongs we do happen inside us. Even when our wrongs hurt others, which somehow they always do, we're the first victims of our own wrongdoing. Wrongs harden our heart, blind us to goodness, and bind us to a disordered love that brings more suffering. It usually takes some event, some loss, some humiliation for us to awaken to the full meaning of our failure to love. And when this happens, our heart fills with sorrow. Sorrow for the hardness of our heart. Sorrow for the suffering that we bring to others. Suffering pulls back the veil and reveals the obstacles that separate us from love. Sorrow shows that wrongdoing made a place so dark that we couldn't see love. But a sorrowful heart can pray, "God, I'm lost. Please help me." This is a prayer for divine mercy. Mercy shines a light on the love that's hidden by a hard heart. Mercy reveals God's power to bring good out of the wrong we've done. Mercy embraces sorrow, and we come to understand that we too can be merciful. Mercy moves us to bring good out of the wrong we've done. And if our heart isn't soft enough to make amends in this life, it means we're asking for a chance to soften our hearts in another. Divine love doesn't depend on anything we did or do or will do. We're loved if we cooperate with love, and we're loved if we act contrary to it. We're loved when we're good, and we're loved when we fail in goodness. In Matthew's Gospel we read, God's sun rises on the good and the evil, and God sends rain on the just and the unjust. Divine love doesn't need for us to be good. Divine love doesn't depend on our performance. It's not conditional on our actions. God doesn't ask for anything that's beyond our strength. No matter how many times we fall, no matter how many times we fail to love, Divine mercy is there to catch us, waiting for a sorrowful heart, ready to be renewed by God's mercy. In his letter to the Romans, St. Paul writes, "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither fears for the day or worries about tomorrow, not all the powers of the world can separate us from God's love." When our heart is touched by divine mercy, we're awake to the truth that we're never separate from God's love. God cares for the inherent goodness in things. All created things are good, and so divine love treats every created thing with care. The evangelist Luke wrote, "5 sparrows are sold for 2 pennies, yet God does not forget a single one of them. There's not a creature so small that God doesn't lovingly care for it and provide it with all it needs." If we treat created things with indifference, carelessness, or violence, we've harmed the good. If we're sad because we hear someone praise the good in another, we're unjust to the good. If we use words to blacken someone's reputation, we've cursed the good. If we say someone is irrational, ignorant, or unlovable, nothing we say can take away the person's human gifts of reason, intelligence, and the capacity to love. We've done nothing but harden our heart to the good. We tend to be on the lookout for faults, and this makes it hard to see the good. We hope eliminating faults will create a better world, and this is true. But when we think that progress in the world is slow, we can be sad. But St. Thomas Aquinas has a happier way to look at the world. To be pleased with the good, always, everywhere, and in every creature. Think for a moment about living in a world where this is our attitude. To be pleased with the good, always, everywhere, and in every creature. This way, the better world we want is already here. To be pleased with the good doesn't mean to ignore faults. It means to put faults in perspective. When faults are out of perspective, we can go on and on talking about them. And with every word that underlines a fault, we move farther and farther from the good we hope to bring about. When we're pleased with the good, we put faults in perspective. Objectively, meaning if we leave our opinion of faults on the side, faults are small in comparison to the enormous amount of good that's in every creature. Faults are blemishes on the good, but they don't take away the good. A house with peeling paint and a broken window is blemished, but for all that, it's still a house. If we can't remove the blemishes, the house still has value. Its purpose is unchanged, and its usefulness is unharmed. Virtue starts with seeing the good. Before we can be patient, generous, compassionate, and merciful, our heart is pleased with the good. Being pleased with the good makes it easier to love. We're feeling that we have to eliminate faults in order to get to the good creates obstacles. To be human is to have faults. To be human is also to be blessed with a tremendous amount of good. To love the good, if we fix our attention, If we fix our attention on what's wrong with the world, the good goes out of focus. If we point our lens at the good, faults are no longer the subject of the picture, but only a small part of it. We live a simple, heartfelt life, one where love can make a home, even if that home has peeling paint and a broken window. Love's home is in our heart, and the home we make for love depends on what we value. We value what we love, and we love what we value. As Christians, we aim to value what Jesus values. In his letter to the Philippians, St. Paul said, "The attitude you should have is the one Christ Jesus had." Jesus' attitude shows us what it means to be fully human, what it means to live a human life. Jesus valued the inherent goodness in creation. He valued the sinner. He valued the weak. He valued the adulterer. He valued the criminal. He valued the outcast. He valued the poor. He valued the sick. He took care of the good he found in the world. Wherever there was good, he found it, valued it, and loved it. Jesus' ministry didn't aim to teach us the finer points of religious law. His justice wasn't concerned with codes of proper behavior. He didn't moralize when someone failed to live up to an ideal. Jesus taught that people are more important than law, and that law exists for people, and that people didn't exist to obey the law. And he valued people by respecting their limits. He didn't condemn them for their frailties. He accepted what they could do. His closest associates barely understood him, and yet he loved them just the same. He looked straight into their heart, their deepest, innermost self, and there he found love and true value. Jesus loves God. He loves the value in the created world, a value that was placed there by a loving God. Jesus loves his neighbor. He loves the good in people, the good that cannot be destroyed by human weaknesses and frailties. Jesus' will and God's will are united. He trusts that in every moment, in ways that are not always clear, God's will is a living presence, a source of infinite love that promises that at the end of each story, a greater good will come about. We've heard a lot of statements about God and his goodness and love, but love is more than words and thoughts. One way to awaken to love is to get in touch with our neighbor. We're human, and we learn a great deal from other humans. God speaks to us through our neighbor. With them, we find out that love is a lot more than words and ideas. So I'm inviting you now to a practice that will get you in touch with your neighbor. The intent of this practice is to develop compassion and awaken in us the deep reserve of love. This is a standing practice, and what I'd ask you to do is, as quietly as possible and without saying anything, please stand up now. You'll need a partner for this practice, so turn to someone who's next to you. You don't have to say anything to this person. Just find a partner. Your partner could be someone that you know, or it can be someone you're meeting the first time. Face your partner and find a relaxing way to stand. This practice will take a few minutes, so find a position that's comfortable. Let yourself be quiet. Take a breath or two. Relax any tension you carry. As you face your partner, look into their eyes. This isn't something you normally do, so you may feel uneasy. Take a breath, and if you feel the urge to laugh or look away, be patient with yourself. Take your time. Be kind to yourself. When you can, come back to your partner's eyes. The opportunity for you to be with this person is given to you now. As you look at your partner's eyes, become aware of the beautiful spirit behind those eyes. Their original goodness and innocence. The value they bring into the world. Behind those eyes are gifts and strengths and great potential. See the goodness and value that's just behind those eyes. As you see the beauty in the spirit of your partner, sense the gifts that are there. Observe the immense amount of reserves of courage, intelligence, patience, endurance, generosity, and mercy. Recognize the inherent value in your partner. See the original goodness that has been placed there. What you're experiencing now is the love and tenderness that's there in each of us. The love and tenderness that we were created from. Take a breath and move from those thoughts and look more deeply into your partner's eyes. As you look more deeply, become aware of the amount of sorrow behind those eyes. See the pains and struggles that this person has accumulated in this life, as in all human life. Pains that you can only guess at. Their disappointments and failures, losses and loneliness, hurts and sorrows. Open your heart to the hurts that he or she may never have told another person. The hurt locked deep in their heart. You can't fix the pain, but you can bear the pain with courage and tenderness. Imagine your partner as a hurt child, how you would naturally reach out to comfort it. What you're experiencing now is the heart of compassion, a compassion that has the power to heal the sorrow in the world. Take another breath and continue to look deeper into your partner's eyes. Picture their happiest moments as a child, a moment of innocent joy, of learning, of growing. Picture them learning to run and play games. The first time they saw the ocean or looked up at the stars. See the spirit of the child that's still in them, that they have a playfulness and a freedom that they can still experience. Think of the joy this person brings into the world. Their capacity to feel joy and create joy. Feel your own joy as you become aware of the joy your partner feels. What you're experiencing is the human capacity to share joy. Value this shared joy as you would a gift that you've waited a long time to receive. Take another breath and release this joy. Look deeper into your partner's eyes. Become aware of your partner's eternal spirit. As you meet in this moment, look at your partner as if you're seeing the face of one who at another time and place was your parent, your mother or father, was your son or daughter, was your friend or enemy, was your wife or husband, was your student or teacher. Who is this person you look at? Not the body or the thoughts, but the consciousness behind those eyes. Who is looking? Who are you really? You have the capacity to love and the deep reserve of love that's in your partner. Recognize the ground of this person is love. Look as deeply as you can at this person. When you can see no deeper, when you've touched the bottom of existence, there you will find love. The ground of our existence is love. Now gently close your eyes. And when you're ready, open your eyes and thank your partner.